the next thing I'm going to do is put a piece of tape across it. And we're doing this because there's a change in texture. To the right, we've got St. Mark's Square, and most of the painting to the left consists of the frontage on the lagoon, the wide, flat, paved area in front of the Doge's palace, and then in front of these buildings running off toward the heart of Venice. So what we do is tape across there, and this marks the change in direction of the paving. Now what I'm going to do is start to brush on the paving with a number of loose, ragged marks like this. I can use both palettes. I've got colours mixed which are suitable in both of them now. So what I'll do is I'll start with the lighter markings, and we just brush these straight across, very quick, very rough and ready. Don't have to be really accurate. I do need to find the edge of the shoreline, so that runs about there. I know what I'll do. This will save me some bother. I'll use my tracing just quickly to find the shoreline, and there it is. It's about there. It's running up to there, so I don't want any paint substantially going above that. That's now acting as a marker. That just makes life easier. Means that these marks can be very loose, rough and ready and quite ragged. The marks going across the middle in the sunlit area are lighter. These are much paler markings. So I'm using light paint, much more watery, and brushing them across the middle area, which is reflecting the glare of the setting sun. Keep it relaxed, keep it loose, keep it rough and ready. And here we go, we're putting in all this paving to the right of the glare area. In the middle, it's just kind of bleached out because it's reflecting so much sunlight. So there we go. And it goes up about as far as that. And now I'm going to darken it progressively. And to do this, I'm adding blue. I'm adding cerulean blue. There we go. So now it's much darker to the left. And we're filling in, building the colour up. What this basically does is give it tonal range. It gives it a big difference between light and dark. It's more important than colour. One way of explaining tone is to say, what would it look like when it was finished if you took a black and white photograph of it? Would it still be okay in black and white? If it's okay in black and white, it'll be all right in colour. There we go. Now these markings here, as they go into the distance, they get finer. The distant markings are finer because of perspective. Things are smaller in the distance, larger in the foreground. So the streaks of colour, the swathes of light are broader. There we go. I want to keep that light in the foreground, so I'm building it up a little bit gently, but there we go. Still retaining that great swathe, that great sweep of light. I'll beef it up a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit more dark to this bottom edge. There we go. And that builds in contrast. If I need to do any more, I can do that while I'm doing something else at the next stage. I'm going to take this tape off before colour creeps under it, so I'm going to let it dry. Right, the foreground's dry, and now we're going to put in the buildings. You may be thinking, it's going to be difficult doing the buildings, but it's not. We're going to put a simple wash in, and it's going to be done quite loosely again. But there is one thing we need to check out. I need to make sure that the base of the buildings, where they touch the water, is horizontal. So I've just got a steel rule. I'll make sure that's horizontal, and I'm just putting a line in across there. So can you see that line there? That's the important one for the base of the building. Now the other thing is The building has disappeared a little bit under the wash, but of course we've got the tracing, so I can put that back. And when I use strong washes, which I love to use, I've lost the drawing, but I can get it back from the tracing. Done a little bit of this already, so we can be ready for this stage, and that's all we do. Just go over the tracing again, and the building reappears. Very pale, but that's good enough, and I can put in a few extra references. I think that's done, so I can paint it. I've got a couple of brushes here. I've got a larger brush, a 7 or 8, and I've got a smaller one. This is a number 4. Doesn't matter exactly what size, as long as you've got a nice point on it. And I'm mixing some cerulean blue, burnt sienna, and quinacridone magenta. A lot of colour, a lot of water. And look, there are spare swatches. You see, there's that one there, but there's a blob of paint there, extra. The important thing is, don't run out. So now we've got the paint, and we're ready to put it on. And we're just going to put a veil of paint right the way across. So we're going to start with this great column. It's got a winged lion on top. But I don't really have to paint a column. I just need to fill in the general area with paint. So there we go. The column is within that lot. And I'm just putting this in as a large silhouetted block of colour. Now here, the board is set so that the cameras can view it easily and so that you can see it properly without me tilting it. But usually, I'd be tilting the board this way and that. So when you're working, tilt the board to suit the natural sweep of your hand. Now I'm just going to use a number 4 for a little bit of detail. Now the winged lion, I don't need to really paint any great detail. Just a nod to the thought that it's got wings, it's got legs, it's got a head, and that'll be quite enough. We don't want to start going into massive detail. On roofscapes, there tends to be a lot of junk. And these days, it's little aerials, antennae, wire cages, protecting aircon or keeping birds off. And although it's modern junk, it still adds to the scene. Now, at this point, I don't have to paint the edge of the column. I'm running this whole wash right the way across in a continuous sheet. It's literally another undercoat. It's an undercoat for the building. It's got 2 brushes here, a 7 and a 4. This 4 is giving me the fine, jagged detail for the cityscape. So here's the roofscape, just jagged and detailed, and that'll give the feel of the distant buildings and the skyline without me having to put in any particular detail. So I'm leaving a few lights here and there. Let's go back to the bigger brush. It makes life easier. And as well as that, I want to keep the colour wet. So how far down here do I want to go? About to there. And that's it. About there. There we go. I left a few lines there for the steps at the base of the building. So that'll do nicely. Now I've got that area sorted, so I'm going to work across the main buildings now in the centre. They've got little minarets on them, little points. So we do those by dragging the brush down. You're limited by how good the brush is for this, so you need a well-pointing brush. They're not expensive. Small brushes aren't expensive. Any brush will do. Now we're going to do the dome. I work the dome from the inside. So there we go. Straight round and down. Get the edges in first, and then work from the inside. So I work that edge from the inside. Now we've got the little bit on the top, and it's got some light shining through it, so make sure you get that. Make sure the paint stays wet and fluid so it all runs together. There's the top of the dome, and I'm dragging the brush off to a nice point. Make sure I've got plenty of strong colour on it, and I'm putting the little spike on the very top. There we go. So that's that done. And now we're going to come down. This side of the dome, normally I definitely tilt the paper. So what I'm going to do is stand up, and I'm just going to come in from this side, because I cannot do that shape unless I change my position relative to the paper. Be very difficult anyway. So that's it. I've done that. So tilt the board to suit the natural sweep of your hand. Now this area below, just fill it all in. We're not really painting domes or shapes. We're just letting the brush do natural things it wants to do anyway. And we can just beef that up a bit so it's a little bit more silhouetted against the sky. Come back to these, darken them up a little bit, and there we've got it. Now I'll go back to the bigger brush and we'll just work our way across. Once you've got the detail in, it's very, very simple to put these swathes of colour. Keep it wet, keep it flowing, and it actually benefits from being a little bit loose. If you look at some of the great masters who've painted Venice, they've taken a lot of liberties with exact shapes. So you don't need to be too accurate for it to look real. And there's a little tiny bit of detail off here along the shore, so we just jag it up, break it up a little bit, having initially got it absolutely horizontal and straight. Now we've got the next bit, great long straight roof, some vast building in the distance. And I'm just going to darken this a little bit, although we can probably do a lot of this at the next stage. So I've just started off a little bit of detail there, but there's probably really no need. That's our first layer for the buildings. It's quite straightforward. Keep it wet, work it through in one go. That brings us to the halfway mark in the painting. Join me next time and we'll finish it.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop and the book that accompanies this series are now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.